bill could mean an additional $17 million in sales tax revenue for the Department of Human Services. By adding tobacco and beer to the list of taxable items, the department would realize some financial relief for next year. But beer industry officials say an additional tax on beer is unfair. Oklahoma already sports the highest excise tax of any of the surrounding states at $10 a barrel, which adds about 47 cents for each six-pack sold. And some state stores are losing business because of it.
The towns that border Kansas, and in particular Missouri, the citizens in that community are inclined, because of an economic advantage, to go to the state of Missouri and purchase their beer and carry it back into the state of Oklahoma. Our major market is the lower income person. We feel that beer is a moderately priced beverage that a lot of people enjoy, and it's an undue tax increase to the people that right now cannot afford it.
The battle over the beer tax exemption is not over yet. Schaeffer and her organization plan to lobby against the bill in the Senate, or perhaps even offer a compromise. They claim there are other ways to get revenue for the DHS besides taxing an industry that they claim is already overburdened with taxes. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Manpower Incorporated, a nationwide job placement firm, has completed a job outlook study for the entire country. A poll of major employers in this region reveals that 22% of them plan to hire additional workers during the second quarter of 1983. This in itself is not a startling revelation. Traditionally, businesses will hire on extra help for the summer months. Recreational businesses will pick up as the weather becomes warmer, as will housing starts and commercial construction. Despite predictions of more jobs, the Oklahoma Employment Commission says don't expect a major drop in the state's unemployment rate.
High for the year in terms of unemployment is the month of June. But employment is usually at a high level also. There are more opportunities, but there are more people looking for work.
When reading this survey, keep in mind who does the research. Manpower Incorporated, the people responsible for this report, are in the business of placing people on temporary jobs. Naturally, it's to their advantage that there be a strong workforce. Traditionally, there are more jobs available in the summer months. But keep in mind there will be more people also looking for work at that same time. At the state capitol, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
According to Oklahoma Social Security officials, the new plan is going to raise a lot of questions. For one thing, it calls for new federal employees to join, and many nonprofit private organizations now exempt will also be required to start paying in. Social Security cost of living increases are due the 1st of July, but when the new law goes into effect, those increases will be delayed for 6 months. The retirement age is another eyebrow raiser. The new age will be 67, but it won't go into effect until the next century. Those nearing retirement age now won't be affected by the change. It will affect the younger Social Security taxpayers.
It will be the year 2010, 2015 before it actually affects anyone as far as retirement. Now, that will be the 20, 21-year age person right now that it will affect, that they'll have to be 67 years of age.
That's not very good, you know, if we've planned for it, and they're taking it out of my checks at work now, and if I still don't get it, but I'll just have to stay active and stay and keep my job for a long time.
Seems like to me that if they can get it now, you know, at 65, I think we ought to be able to do the same thing.
It's kind of bad because some people who are not able to work at 65 are going to have a little trouble, you know, waiting the 2 years.
The population is growing anyway, so how are they going to save money by changing the age to 67?
In the years to come, future Social Security recipients could see more drastic changes in the system, according to legislators. But for now, the $165 billion package Congress approved will take effect when the president signs it and begin a new era of Social Security responsibility. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Our biggest problems in this country have always been caused when leaders didn't level with the people. How can you expect the American people to respond sensibly when they are deceived and misled and sometimes outright lied to?
Bumpers came to Oklahoma City to make his presence known to Oklahoma Democrats. Oklahoma has become a key state due largely to the fact the state caucus is early in 1984. It begins in March, and the candidates recognize how important it is to get an early start here. Bumpers has not yet formally announced his candidacy, but aides say it will be made sometime in the next 3 weeks. After the speech, he held an impromptu news conference. Agriculture and the energy industry were two of the main points of interest.
As grain prices go up, as they have in the past 2 weeks, there's going to be more and more pressure to try to keep prices down, because the more they go up, the less we can export. And one of the things that farmers have been plagued with in this country, and one thing that almost every president has done, is to play politics with our food and grain exports to the detriment of the farmers.
Bumpers supported the windfall profits tax, but believes the industry will benefit when the tax runs out.
When you have a cartel of 13 nations sit around and dictate what the price of oil will be in the world, to allow that cartel to set prices for us, we could not do it here because of the antitrust laws. I felt that it was unfair. But as I say, I think the energy people, the oil and gas people in this country, will again do very well once the windfall profits tax is out and once the economy begins to demand more energy.
The race is on for the Democratic nomination in 1984. And if this year is any indication, Oklahoma and other Sunbelt states will draw more interest from the major party candidates. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
A list of scientists and asking them to pass on those scientists. Now the law...
From the outside, the 24-unit apartment complex looks like any other, but inside it's loaded with special features for the handicapped. Greg and Camille Hood both have cerebral palsy. They've lived at Rainbow Hill since it opened in January. And for them, it's not only home, it's a new way of life.
Because it's better equipped and I don't have to work as hard to get into things, to get out of things. It's not as much effort for me. In other words, it's not as much of a struggle. Most cabinets, they're high, way high up, and I'm short anyway, and by the time I have to manage it from the chair, that makes it even harder.
Everything in the apartments is especially positioned for those in a wheelchair, and there are special safety features like extra big showers and handrails. This unique home for the handicapped is the only one of its kind in the state, and already there's a waiting list of prospective residents. The rent at Rainbow Hill is based on the residents' ability to pay, but Greg and Camille say their home allows them to function in freedom, and that's worth any price. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City.
The males of the 20s were not as yet fully domesticated. They stuck together. We can't stop.
The Cleveland County Jail is one of many holding facilities across the state that usually fills up with inmates on the weekends. This building was constructed in the early 1900s when Norman was predominantly a farm community. All that's changed now, but the county's jail hasn't. With new release programs like the one Oklahoma County is starting, the need for new jails should be eased. That's true to some extent, but one official with the state health department is convinced that early release programs will not be a cure-all for Oklahoma jails.
Well, all of the jails in Oklahoma are not overcrowded. You know, there are some that have major overcrowding problems. To eliminate overcrowding will eliminate some of the major problems that Oklahoma jails have, because overcrowding causes other problems. causes problems in sanitation. It causes problems in fire and safety. It causes problems in security and control of the facility.
But for old structures like the Canadian County Jail in El Reno, overcrowding is just one of many reasons why this county is in a constant battle with state inspectors. At one time, the only means of escape during a fire here was a tow truck to pull out a wall and let the inmates go free. State health department officials admit that most of the state's 77 county jails were designed to last only about 30 to 40 years. For many facilities, the time has long passed for a facelift. But despite the need for new jails, many law enforcement and health agencies agree that early release programs are a step in the right direction. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
When we had our needs assessment meeting 3 weeks ago, they said that everything was fine. We were going to have money for next year and there'd be no problems.
Work.
When we had
Anything that can be done to assist the law enforcement officers in identifying oil field thieves, and anything to assist the producers, and anything to assist the mineral owners and the state of Oklahoma in saving tax dollars, I'm definitely for it. And this is one way we can do this.
What seems to separate most potential home buyers from the homes has been interest rates. The Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency is trying to do something about that by selling $91 million worth of tax-exempt bonds. This action will enable Oklahoma home buyers to borrow low-interest single-family mortgage money. 21 state lending institutions will offer 9.99% interest rates for those who qualify. But after 2 years, monthly payments will increase 3%, and the payments will continue to increase by 3% every 12 months. Until the mortgages are paid off in 16.5 years. Officials say the payment hikes are not really unbearable.
An example, if your payments on the loan is originally $500 per month, it will remain the same for 2 years. On the 25th payment, your payments, including the 3%, will be $515 per month. So even though there's an increase, that increase is not astronomical, and the increase is applied to the principal, directly to the principal, and not the interest of the loan.
It's important to remember you can't apply for the 9.99 mortgage money until April 20th. In Oklahoma County, you may go to the Capital Federal Savings and Loan, Citizens Mortgage, Oklahoma Mortgage, Mortgage Clearing Corporation, or the Realty Mortgage Corporation to apply. And loans are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis according to who qualifies. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Plank, right?
Yes. Oh, we think it's very important, and it's a fun thing to do, and
like I said, the main thing is to, in addition to raising a little money, to bring the outside community in and just share something special with them here on campus. Oh, thank you.
Prosecutor Rick Sitzman wrapped up the state's case. Sitzman attempted to verbally tie 4 days of testimony together and leave the jury a mental picture of Tammy Carter's last few moments of life.
We have painted you a picture from which you can look at and observe and know beyond a reasonable doubt that there is a picture of a man on his hands and knees over Tamara Carter's body, making the biggest mistake of his life. And there that man sits.
Defense attorney Joe Langford tried to poke holes in the prosecution's murder theory. He reminded the jurors of their previous promise to keep an open mind about his client.
Before Dyer, each and every one of you promised me that unless the state proved each and every element of this crime to you beyond any reasonable doubt, that you would find him not guilty, that you would not guess that maybe he might be guilty, but that you would find him not guilty. And I have no doubt that you are going to do your duty here.
After more than 3 hours of closing arguments, the 7-woman, 5-man jury retired to ponder Bobby Standridge's guilt or innocence. The jury had spent 4 days listening to testimony about the guilt or innocence of Bobby Joe Standridge. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jurors told Judge Mike McDaniel they had reached a unanimous verdict.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled cause, upon our oaths find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. And that is signed by Gary Todd. Todd, is that right? Foreman of the jury.
Standridge seemed stunned by the guilty verdict. All he could do was shake his head in disbelief. It was also an emotional time for the victim's parents. This is the third time Carol and Jerry Carter have had to listen to the details of their daughter's death. Prosecutor Rick Sitzman has won convictions for 2 of the 3 men accused of killing Tammy Carter. He's glad this trial is over.
My initial reaction to simply the fact that we got a verdict is one of relief. It's been a long time. It's been a trial in every sense of the word for all the parties involved, both families, both counsel. As an attorney, I'm very pleased with the verdict.
The same jury must now decide whether Bobby Standridge should spend the rest of his life in prison or be put to death. They'll make that life or death decision tomorrow. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Norman.
Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Oklahoma City that effective this 5th day of April 1983, the street known as 89er Circle be named Patience Latting Circle. Move the resolution.
That resolution came as a complete surprise to outgoing Mayor Patience Latting. There was praise for the woman who was elected mayor of Oklahoma City 12 years ago. Today is the last day Mayor Latting will preside over a city council meeting. She is the first woman to be elected mayor of any major city in America, and the council wanted to show its appreciation for a job well done.
Your Honor, we thought that since you might not be down here every Tuesday or Monday through Friday, we didn't want you to forget this new circle, and would like to present to you, on behalf of the council and the citizens, a copy of the sign on Patience Latting Circle. Our pleasure.
Mayor Latting is only the second person to serve 3 terms in the city's highest office. Council members were told to keep today's action a secret from the mayor until it came up for a vote. In fact, the wording of the street name change on the agenda gave no indication of what the council was voting on. In any event, Patience Latting will still be near City Hall, even though she won't be in office. Ed Stewart, Action 4. Stewart, Action 4.
It won't help the trucker themselves, no. It'll help the trucking companies. That's about it. We run up and down the road every week, from coast to coast. That's about the only thing I see that's really in danger is doubles.
Good morning,
I wouldn't pull it.
I wouldn't pull doubles. Thank you.
Landing gear came down right on time.
Looks like 3 good wheels. Now Paul is just holding it off until he reaches 185 knots.
And here it comes. We have touchdown.
Very nice.
And here comes the nose gear down. Nose gear is on the ground and Challenger is home.
And now we're about to start that braking test I mentioned.
Touchdown time at 5 days, 0 hours, 23 minutes, 42 seconds.
They landed 2 seconds earlier than planned, Gordon.
I have to talk to him about that.
Challenger will be rolling out to a stop now, and we should point out that while we're on the air this time, we will not see the 4 astronauts, Musgrave, Peterson, Weitz, and Bobko, get out. A few checkout procedures will have to be taken before they can get out, but they will be out very soon. The closeout crew will go inside and make the final preparations on the Challenger.
We'll stop at 32 past the hour.
How did that braking test look, Gordon?
It looks very good. I can see the number 10 runway marker in the field of view now on the scene, and that means that they stopped.
Money from the millage election primarily pays for school supplies, maintenance, and personnel. 20% of the Oklahoma City School District's budget comes from the millage tax, and every year it comes up for a vote. The millage is a tax paid by Oklahoma City property owners, and according to the school administration, the tax must be approved.
Our budget requests are always $6 to $10 million more than we have available every year. We have to cut back programs. We have to cut back expenditures for personnel. We always are operating on a very limited budget, and this would be a disaster.
Dave Renfro is president of the American Federation of Teachers. He supports passage of the millage, but says there may be some problems getting it approved.
I think the insensitivity that was demonstrated toward possible layoffs in this district hasn't helped at all. If anything, it's going to hurt. My only hope is that taxpayers recognize, especially parents, that if they want their kids to be going to schools next year with at least the maintenance of funding that we have right now, they need to vote yes on this.
There's not been an increase in the millage tax in more than 2 decades. So if approved, Oklahoma City property owners would pay the same millage tax in 1984 that they did in 1960. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the School Administration Building.
Terry Reed is blind, and for the past 3 years, it's been a struggle for her to keep up with the other communication majors at East Central State University in Ada, Oklahoma. But all that's changed. Terry, along with the university's other 14 visually handicapped students, now have access to the Kurzweil Reading Machine. The computer has the ability to comprehend printed material and verbally repeat anything it reads.
Scanner moving to top of page. If yours is a community newspaper, thorough and accurate coverage of local events should be a top priority. Your paper may be the only objective, comprehensive source of news about what's going on close to home.
Xerox, the manufacturer of the Kurzweil computer, has donated 200 of these reading machines to colleges and universities all over the country. There are more than 200 million Americans unable to read ordinary print, even with glasses. For Terry, the computer has become the eyes that she needs to be a competitive student.
News is whatever happens in your community. Whatever that
Educationally, I'll be able to read anything that I want to read, do some of the library research on my own, and I think it'll make a difference socially. Anything that I can do on my own without assistance makes me feel better, and I seem to fit into crowds better that way.
Through the use of this machine, educational possibilities for the blind are now endless. But the computer also has a more practical aspect. People like Terry can now have fun with non-educational materials, like a juicy novel or a magazine.
And all this can be accomplished without bothering friends or family to read for her. In Ada, Cordon Reaction 4.
And I want to say to this House that if the Speaker will give a commitment to this House that he will bring one of those, and I couldn't care less, I'm on every one of them, if you will bring one of those bills, allow one of them to come to the floor, I'll withdraw my motion. I don't care whose bill it is, as long as this House has a chance to vote on it.
Well, Mrs. Cole, unfortunately, I don't decide which bills are coming out of committee or which ones are staying in.
Now, Mr. Speaker.
But I will
well,
say...
I respect you, Mr. Speaker.
I will say that I told the Democrats...
Many times during an election, those simple state questions become complicated paragraphs that take a genius to decipher. It's hard to know if your vote means yes or no. That's because attorneys in the Attorney General's office write them in legalese. But under a bill by Representative Cleta Deatherage, the questions would be written by people in the Secretary of State's office. So simple, people with an 8th grade education could understand them.
I think if we're going to have a process where we refer questions to a vote of the people need to be able to understand what they're voting on. I think people right now are very angry when they walk in and can't understand them, and then they vote no.
With all the complaints about the way questions are written now, it's a wonder someone didn't come up with the idea before. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
was when you approved it. What shape? Anything you want to add to that? Square feet. And included in that, the whole budget for this place is about $13 million in construction costs. And these plans.
Since it is 7, we would add 1 to the 9. Therefore, this number rounded to the nearest hundredths.
This is math the old way, working out mathematical problems with a paper and pencil and not a calculator. These Algebra 1 students at John Marshall are encouraged to solve their math equations on paper and not with a calculator. But the old way isn't the best way, according to the National Council of Math Teachers and the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Both groups say students should use calculators on long mathematical equations.
There is an increased number of calculator exercises in textbooks, but not because this tends to educate students. The textbook publishers have found, though, that calculator exercises in the textbooks help sell the textbooks.
But despite the push by some to use calculators, the Oklahoma City School Administration suggests calculators only be used by students taking trigonometry and calculus. And many of the math teachers agree.
If a student can't perform the basic operations with different types of numbers like decimals, fractions, and integers, then he needs more practice, and he's not going to do that or get the practice if he uses a calculator. He's going to have to do it manually.
McDonald says once students learn to think out the math problems for themselves, using a calculator is an option and not the only way to get the right answer. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.